statement.
Thank you, Chairman Nadler and Ranking Member Collins, for the opportunity to discuss and mark up this piece of legislation, move forward with an important conversation about gun violence in our country. Let me start by saying that I appreciate any effort by any member on either side of the aisle to offer legislation aimed at reducing gun violence. I do. The majority's legislation being considered today, however well-meaning or intended it may be, doesn't solve the problems the proponents of this bill claim that it will. As the ranking member on the Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security Subcommittee, I want to highlight a few of the problems with this bill. The majority wants to stem gun violence in our country by improving our system of background checks. But H.R. 8 doesn't improve our current system of background checks. It expands it. When a system is broken and not operating as intended, the solution is to fix it, not to simply expand it. This bill expands an incomplete background check system. The system is only as good as the records in it, and as of today, it is incomplete at best. Highlighting that point and frankly exacerbating the problem is the fact that the majority's bill prohibits a gun registry. How can you enforce a system of background checks if there can't be a registry of those background checks? How does that work? It doesn't work. It's unenforceable. Now, I wouldn't necessarily expect my colleagues to take my word for it, so let me refer to a concurring opinion from a source that I don't frequently cite, the Obama Justice Department. In 2013, the National Institute of Justice in the Obama Justice Department concluded that the effectiveness of any universal background check system depends on requiring gun registration. But this bill clearly and unequivocally prohibits that type of registry. The majority's bill is also premised on the idea that an expanded background check would keep guns out of the hands of criminals. But that is based on the incontrovertibly false premise that most criminals follow the law and will go through a background check to get a gun. They don't. And they won't. Let's not forget the definition of a criminal: someone who doesn't obey the law. The vast majority of people who follow the law and go through background checks to get a gun are law-abiding gun owners who want to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Today's legislation succeeds only in making it harder on law-abiding citizens to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Now, if this legislation tried to make it harder for people to exercise their First Amendment rights to speak or to assemble instead of their Second Amendment rights, I'm pretty sure that a lot of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle wouldn't be in favor of it. So they shouldn't be in favor of it when it restricts the Second Amendment, and not in a way that would reduce crime, but only make it harder for law-abiding people to exercise their rights. I can and I will support legislation that is effectively designed to keep guns out of criminals' hands, but this bill doesn't do that. Again, the vast majority of criminals do not submit themselves to a background check by licensed firearms dealers when they're looking for a gun. They get it through theft, and they get it through straw purchasers. In fact, 90% of prisoners who possessed a gun during the offense for which they have been incarcerated did not get that gun from a retail source. And less than 1% of those prisoners actually obtained a gun at a gun show. These statistics underscore how today's legislation is not effectively designed to target criminals who engage in gun violence. If the majority is interested in taking criminals and their guns off the street, and I believe that they are, then we should be addressing the root cause of gun violence in this country, and this bill should be calling for increased gun prosecutions. But this bill does not mention prosecutions. Last week, the executive director of the Giffords Gun Control Group testified that the majority's bill is a good first step. Mr. Chairman, expanding an incomplete background system in a way that makes it entirely unenforceable is a giant step backwards. If the majority believes that this is a good first step, I don't want to see its second and third steps. I hope that the majority's gun control agenda won't be to ignore the root causes of gun violence in this country. And with that, I yield back.